Chapter 65 of Jin Ping Mei Chongzhen version of the embroidered portrait. May the funeral ceremony at the same point be prosperous for a while, and the orphan soul be guarded in the middle of the night with fragrant mouthfeel. The poem says, the tobacco in Xianggao is green, and the east wind sheds tears in memory of you. It is said that Chang'e can enter the moon, and I doubt that the goddess will explain it. Sitting idle on golden scissors in the shade of flowers, during the day, wandering in the cold spring green skirt in the bamboo. The painting is left with broken pieces, but I am so sad that I can't bear to read the palindrome. It is said that on October 28th, the 27th day of Li Ping'er, Taoist official Wu of the Jade Emperor Temple received a fast. He invited 16 Taoists to raise banners and build a fasting altar at home. Another doctor, An, came to write a letter, and Ximen Qingguan went to wait for the visitor. 3 animals were brought to the Wu Daoguan temple to offer sacrifices, and a ruler was presented as a memorial ceremony. The Taoists circled the coffin and passed incantations, and Wu Taoist official bowed before his soul. Ximen King and Jingji returned the gift and thanked him. Master has a lot of money to spend, so how can he afford it? Wu Daoguan said. Xiao Dao is very ashamed. He should have helped Yi Yi to recommend his wife, but he has little power, and is just making a crude sacrifice to express his gratitude. King Ming accepted it and sent the box bearer back. On that day, 3 dynasty prayers were performed, divine seals were produced, the 9 hells were broken, spirits were summoned, and rituals were carried out. There is no need to go into details. On the 2nd day, Uncle Han's house outside the door first came to offer sacrifices. At that time, Meng Yulu's brother Meng Rui came home for business. Seeing that there was a funeral in Ximen King, he followed Uncle Han to offer sacrifices, asked for some filial piety, and gave away many things. Ximen King said the ceremony and entered the Jade building to pay his respects. Ximen King also set up a banquet to take care of the guests, which was not stated in words. At noon that day, the county magistrate Li Gongji, the county magistrate Jin Sekeng, the chief bookkeeper Ren Liangui, the Dianchi Jia Gongji, and the Yang'e County Magistrate Disi, a total of 5 officials, all fought against each other and came to the court in mourning clothes. Paper and Silk asked questions. Ximen King prepared the banquet and took care of it in the rolling shed. He invited Uncle Wu and Wen Shukai to accompany him, and the 3 young boys played and sang. When he was drinking in a busy place, he suddenly heard Daddy Huang, who was in charge of the engineering department of the brick factory, has come to pay his respects. Ximen King panicked and quickly put on his mourning clothes to wait in front of the waiter. When Shukai welcomed him outside the gate early and asked him to go to the front hall, where he changed clothes come in. The family members brought incense, candles, paper and gold pieces to the funeral. Master Huang lit the incense and paid homage. Ximen King Tong came down to return the favor. Huang said, "Student, I don't know how respectful I am. I'm late to pay my respects. Please forgive me." "Forgive me," Ximen King said. "Student has always been disrespectful, but now I accept the offer of condolences from the old gentleman, which is also an insult to my courtesy. I'm very grateful. After the ceremony, please go to the rolling shed and sit down." Ximen King and Wen Shukai were sitting next to each other, bringing tea to the table. Manager Huang said, "Yesterday Song Yuan paid a lot of compliments to Mr. Song. He also heard about what Madame Ling had done and wanted to come to ask questions. Zheng Nai is bound by many things. He is now living in Jeju. Sir, you don't know yet that the imperial court is building Zhenyu, ordered Taiwei Jumeng to go to Haxiang in the south of the Yangtze River to pick up the Huaxi gang, and the first shipment was coming to Huishang. He also sent the 6 Huang Taiwei in front of the palace to meet Qingyan's strange peaks, which were 2 feet long, several feet wide, all covered with yellow felt, flying yellow flags, and several boats came from the river in Shandong. There was no water in the river, and the officials of the 8 counties were hanging upside down, and the people were in dire straits. I have experienced everything personally. I have to work hard day and night, and I have no time to spare. Soon Taiwei Huang arrived from Beijing. Song Taoist said that he must leave the officials of the 3rd department to pick him up. He thought there was no one he knew well here, so he entrusted him with it. "The student has come. I would like to invite Captain Li Wang to have a meal with you. I have not yet heard whether you will agree to it." Yin called to the people around him. "I asked you. Father Song, to come up here. 2 officials in green clothes knelt down. A pair of gold pieces, a stick of agar wood, 2 sticks of white wax, and a piece of tissue paper were taken out of the bag. Mr. Huang said, "This is the ceremony of Duke Song. Those 2 letters are for the wine distribution of officials from the divisions and 8 government offices, 12 officials from the divisions and 8 officials from the government, totaling 22 points, a total of 100. 6 Liang, he asked Simon King. How about a good job? It's still early, and it's half a moon. Unikwang hasn't gotten up yet. Simon King said, since it was ordered by Song Gongzu and the old man, I dare not accept this order. I don't dare to accept the money. I just tell the students how many tables there are. Huang said, this is a bad idea. Song Yuan entrusts students to come. This is a courtesy for all officials in Shandong province. If you don't accept it, you will go back to Song Yuan and don't dare to mess with you again. After Simon King heard this, he said, please take charge of me. He ordered Diane and Wang Jing to take over. Go down. Asked how many tables have been prepared, Chief Huang said, 6 yellow tables are prepared for a big table to eat at. Song Gong and the 2 officials all have flat top tables, and the officials below are as dispersing. I agree to entertain people and have their own dispatches to serve them. There is no need to shout anymore. After saying that, he changed the tea and soup and stood up. When Simon celebrated his stay, Chief Huang said, the student still has to pay homage to Mr. Shang Liutang. He used to be the county magistrate in the student's office, and then he was promoted to an official in Chengdu Prefecture. Now his son Liang Quan, and the student the provincial examination was held in the same year. Simon King said, the students don't know that the old man and Chang Liang Quan are close to each other, and the 2 springs also intersect with the students. Master Huang stood up, and Simon King said, Mr. Fan pays his respects to Song Gongzu, and he will wait in his humble residence. Master Huang said, Song Yuan will send someone to inform you before the deadline, so don't be too extravagant. Simon King said, you know, he walked out of the gate and got on his horse. When the county officials heard that Chief Huang was coming with his patrol superiors, they were so frightened that they hid in a small rolling shed at the foot of the mountain to drink and ordered their men to hide the sedan horses aside. At that time, Simon King returned to the Wansheng to meet with the officials and told them that Song Shunzong led the divisions and 8 mansions to come, and he went out to welcome the 6 Huang Taiwei. All the officials said, it is the prefectures and counties that are extremely worried about this matter. If the imperial envoy comes, everything that comes from the prefectures and counties will be taken away from them. For the people, public and private affairs are extremely difficult. So this is not the case. I still hope that Siquin will be promoted by his superiors, which shows his great love. After saying this, they all sat down and laughed. Stop talking nonsense. When I arrived at Li Pinger Senki, there was Elder Daojian of Yangfu Temple outside the gate, leading 16 monks to come to chant sutras. They were wearing cloud brocade cassocks, Barakana hats, and big cymbals and drums. They were very neat. On the 8th day of the 10th month, Lama Zhao from Baking Temple outside the West Gate and 16 members of the congregation were invited to come and recite sutras, make an altar and jump on the sand, scatter rice and incense, and recite mantras. The fasting offerings are all made of milk, tea, cheese, and the like, and the hangings are the 9 ugly demons in disguise, wearing tassels of colored glaze, hanging skulls on their necks, biting babies, sitting on top of demons, with snakes and snakes wrapped around their waists, or with 4 heads and 8 arms, or he holds a halberd in his hand, has red hair and a blue face. And after lunch, there is meat and wine. Simon King was not at home that day, so he and Mr. Zhu of Yin and Yang went to the tomb to break open the ground and did not return until noon. In the evening, I sent the Lama away. The next day, all the necessary supplies, such as wine, rice, and table delicacies were transported from the top of the mountain, and they were entrusted to the supervisor to set up sheds on the front and rear of the farm, and 3 more sheds were erected next to the cave in the tomb. First invite the neighbors nearby, and treat them with wine and meat. When they were about to leave, they all returned home with burdens on their shoulders, so there is no need to elaborate. On the 11th day of the day, first of all, singers and gongs, and drums were used to hang people in front of the souls, including 5 ghosts making trouble. Zhang Tianqi is obsessed with ghosts. Zhang Kui plays with little ghosts. I pass the Han Pass, 6 thieves making Amitabha, plum blossoms in the snow. Zhuangzhou dreams of butterflies. The king of heaven descends water, fire and wind. Dongbin flying sword kills the yellow dragon. Zhao Tezu sends Jing Niang 1,000 miles away. All kinds of plays are over, and all the guests are here. Shen Baling left, and relatives inside and outside came to bid Ling burn paper and cry loudly. On the next day, the famous banners, flags and pavilions were carried out as early as possible, and monks, drummers, fine musicians, and servants all came to wait on them. Ximeng King asked the commander-in-chief Zhou in advance for 50 patrol sergeants, all armed with bows and horses, and fully equipped. 10 men were left at home to guard the horses, and 40 men were left to set up horse paths beside the wood, running in 2 wings. In the Yamen, there were another 20 platoon troops to clear the way and take care of the underworld weapons. There are 20 gatekeepers at the tomb to collect sacrifices. On that day, officials, relatives, neighbors and friends came to see the funeral procession. The streets were filled with noisy carriages and horses. There are more than 100 sedan chairs for the relatives of the family, and there are dozens of pink-headed sedan chairs for the bastards of the 3 courtyards. Su Yinyang chose the right time to raise the coffin. Ximeng King left Sun Sui and 2 female monks to look after the house, while Ping Inner and 2 platoon troops guarded the front door. His son-in-law Chen Jingji knelt in front of the coffin and threw a basin, and 64 people carried it. One of the widowers stood on the additional frame, knocked on the sound board, and directed the bearers to carry it on their shoulders. First, the monks and officials of Baoan Temple were invited to lift up the coffin, then turned around the main street and looked south. There were huge crowds of people watching on both sides. It was a sunny day, and it was indeed a good funeral. But see, the gentle breeze opens the beautiful streets. The drizzle moistens the fragrance. The morning sun rises in the east, and the remaining smoke from the northern continent begins to fade away. In the winter, the funeral gongs can't stop the noise. The gongs are tinkling, and the gongs are hanging on the ground all night long. The inscription calls for the sword. The big calligraphy is 9 feet red. The sky is set on fire, and the yellow mist disperses for half a day. A ferocious road-clearing ghost carries a golden axe at an angle. Suddenly, a foreign and dangerous Taoist god carries a silver sword at his end. The immortals in the 8 caves are happy and free, surrounded by turtles and cranes. The graceful and graceful 4-haired girl is accompanied by tigers and deer. Lotus-picking boats were bustling with activity, and Sako was making jokes. Men on long stilts wore armor and helmets. There are 16 delicate little Taoist boys, all wearing shy Taoist buns, carrying the celestial voice of their sect. There are 24 fat monks, all wearing cloud brocade cassocks, performing the rituals of the 5 directions. There are 12 large silk pavilions, all of which are green and red. There are 24 small silk pavilions, all of which are surrounded by pearls and green. In the left position, Tiangkong and the basement are connected. In the right position, Jinchen and Yinshen form a team. In the palm kitchen, there are 8 treasure jars. In the incense and candle pavilion, there are 3 offerings. There are 600 flower pavilions, showing thousands of brocades, a soul-inducing sedan chair, tied with hundreds of knots of yellow silk. Here the flowers compete with the snowy willows, and over there the treasure caps and silver pillars form a team. Flags with gold characters and silver characters protect the coffin. White silk umbrellas and green silk umbrellas are placed round the coffin. The merit cloth attracts people, and the filial piety and family members express their condolences. They march to line up the troops, held olive poles and sheared from front to back, attended funeral gatherings, and performed martial arts while circling left and right. Selling explanations is like an eagle and a hawk, and a walking horse is like an ape, standing on the shoulders, fighting each other, wearing money across the belly. The golden rooster is independent. Everyone cheers, and everyone competes for praise, holding the shoulders and squeezing the back. One does not distinguish between the wise and the foolish. When one meets and looks at each other, one will distinguish between noble and inferior. Zhang San is stupid and fat, and can only hold his breath. Li Si is short and has his feet frequently occupied. The white-headed old man used his walking stick to hold his mustache. The beautiful lady with a green mustache also brought her children to watch the funeral. Wu Yunyang, Li Jiar and other family members carried more than 10 sedans, following closely behind. Ximeng King, the crown prince, paid his respects to all the relatives and friends behind the coffin. Chen Jingji held the coffin tightly and walked out of Dongjiku. Ximeng King invited the Taoist official of the Jade Emperor Temple to hang it. Wearing a bright red and 5-color crane cloak, a 9-young thunder scarf on his head, with his feet on the danjia, holding a toothwad in his hand, he sat on a 4-person shoulder carriage to welcome the funeral. Holding Li Ping'er's big shadow in his hands, Chen Jingji knelt in front. And the funeral stopped. Everyone heard him read loudly, Gong Wei therefore. The spirit of the Li family of Jinyi Ximeng Gongren was 27 years old in the year of Ryong. His Yuan life was Shenwei. He was born at noon on the 15th day of the first lunar month. He died at the ugly hour on the 17th day of the 9th month in the 7th year of Zhang. Fuyi respects the spirit. The famous artist is beautiful, and the beautiful pavilion is beautiful. The appearance of the flower moon is endowed with the beauty of Cymbidium orchid. Ud is gentle and gentle in nature. With me, Xian, I can overcome the humorous couple. She lives in a boudoir and is virtuous, playing the piano and playing the harp to make peace. I once planted blue fields and looked for Chuan. It's a good time to enjoy 100 years of happiness. But it's a pity that the spring is gone. Alas, the bright moon is easily missing. And good things are hard to keep. Good things are impermanent, and shortcomings are limited. Today, the coffin is carrying the road. The red flag is facing the wind. The good husband is dancing in front of the coffin. And the filial piety and mourning are in the alley. Farewell is deeply felt and difficult, and the sound and appearance are forgotten day by day. A certain class of people are disdainful of their crowns and hairpins, and are ashamed to accept Xuanjia. He is ashamed to lack the magical skills of Xin Yuanping and adheres to the legacy of Xuan Yuanxi, just showing the face of Chui Wei in the mirror. It is difficult to return to the butterfly in Chuangzhou's dream, washing the nectar and fermenting the nectar. Super knowledge ascends to the purple mansion, draped in hundreds of treasures and facing the 7 truths. It leads the pure soul out of the underworld. If you have no worries, all 4 elements will be empty. Bitter, bitter, bitter. The qi transforms into the clear wind and returns to the earth. The true nature of a spirit can never come back, and it can change its face countless times. Listen to the last sentence. Hey, I don't know where to go, but I will leave it for future generations to see. After Wu Daoguan finished reading, he sat on the sedan chair, and the sedan chair rolled up and retreated. Here the drums and music are noisy, and the morning is shaking the earth. The funeral just got up and meandered out of the south gate. All relatives and friends accompanied Ximeng King and rode horses above the gate. Chen Jingji supported the coffin and arrived at Wuliyuan on the top of the mountain. It turned out that Zhang Tuanlian was sitting in the camp, leading 200 troops, and together with Liu and Zhu, the 2 internal ministers, they had already set up a tent in Gaofu in front of the tomb, blowing trumpets and beating gongs and drums to welcome the funeral and watch the vessels being burned. The paper was tied, and the smoke and flames rose to the sky. The coffin was carried at the foot of the mountain. Mr. Zhu led the coffin and hung it according to the Luo Sutra. After offering sacrifices, the coffin was buried in the corner. Ximeng King changed his clothes, prepared a pair of rulers as a gift, and asked the commander-in-chief Zhou to guard the master. Weizhang officials and relatives and friends all competed with Simon to serve him wine. There were loud drums and music. Fireworks filled the ground, and there was no need to go into details. After eating, she returned home in the afternoon. Wu Yunyang sat in a soul sedan chair, holding the soul flag of the Lord God. Chen Jingqi supported the coffin bed, and 16 Taoist boys playing drums and playing music played on both sides. Uncle Wu, together with Kiao Dahu, second Uncle Wu, Uncle Hua, Uncle Shen, second Uncle Meng, Earl Ying, Zi Zaida, Wen Xiukai, and all the supervisors, all accompanied Ximeng King into the city. The door of the house is set on fire. The Peace and Li Ping'er's room has been completed, and Mr. Zhu's front hall has been cleaned and worshipped, and all the doors are decorated with non-yellow talismans. Mr. Zizou went out with a ruler and 5 taels of silver, and all the personnel services were dismissed. He also took out 20 coins, 5 coins to reward the patrolling soldiers, 5 coins to reward the troops in the Yamen, and 10 coins to reward the men and horses in the camp. It's no problem to reply to Zizou's defense. Zhang Tuanlian and Jia Tixing with the post. Simon King wanted to leave Uncle Kiao and Uncle Wu to sit down, but everyone refused and stood up after making a speech. Lai Baojun said, "We'll set up a tent and wait outside. We'll come and demolish it tomorrow." Simon King said, "We don't need to demolish the tent. We've given you, Father Song, time to dismantle the tent." He sent the painter away. Behind them, Mrs. Hua and Mrs. Kiao were still waiting for Enbiling. They cried a lot before leaving. Simon King couldn't bear to leave so suddenly, so he came to Li Pingera's room in the evening to stay with his spirit. Seeing that the funeral bed was placed in the front, with a large shadow hanging next to it, a half-length body was placed in the funeral bed. Inside, there was a small brocade bedding, a bed table, clothes, dowry, etc., all of which were in good condition. Underneath was a pair of his small golden lotuses and a table. Simon King burst into tears as he offered all kinds of offerings, including incense, flowers, lamps and candles, gold dishes and bottles. Ling Yingxun set up a bed on the king opposite, and at midnight, facing the solitary lamp and the moon slanting halfway through the window, he lay sleepless, sighing long and short, thinking about the beautiful woman. There is poetry to prove it. Sighing and sighing at the locked window, Woluan's solitary figure is heartbroken. Orchids dry up and Chuan falls under 3 autumn rains, and maples fall over Wujiang River in 1 night of frost. I have violated my wishes in my previous life, and it is difficult to find the fragrance of returning to my soul in this life. There are spirits in Juquan fruit, and the people in the underground world are heartbroken. During the day, Simon King personally watched the maids set the table, and he ate with her. He raised his chopsticks and said, "Please have some food." He acted as if he was present. The maids and nurses could not help but cry. The wet nurse Ryer, when there was no one around, often passed tea and water to her, snatched it, pinched it, interrupted and answered, and it took 3 or 2 nights. On this day, Simon King invited many officials and guests to come home to warm the grave, and he got drunk with them. When he came in, Yingxun sent him to rest. At night, he wanted tea, but Yingxun didn't respond. So Ryer came to serve tea. Seeing that he was dragged off the king, he took the teacup and held the quilt with his hand. Simon King was excited, so he hugged her neck and kissed her, and put his tongue in her mouth. His wife started to suck her, and she didn't say a word. Simon King asked her to take off her clothes and get on the king. The two of them hugged each other in the quilt, enjoying themselves and making love. The wife said, "Since father has given me favor and mother is gone, I would rather not leave father's house and let father take care of me." Simon King then said, "My son, just serve me wholeheartedly. I will worry that I can't support you." The wife flattered him in bed, made love with him, and made Simon King very happy. The next day, the wife got up in the morning, helped Simon King to get shoes and fold the quilt, and did not rely on Yingxun, but was very attentive and did everything for him. Simon King opened the door and found 4 hairpins from Li Pinger to reward him. The wife kowtowed and thanked him. Yingxun knew that he had taken her, and the two of them became friends. The wife relied on her favor and her foothold to be firmly established, and she no longer had to ask for help from others. She dressed up differently than before, and talked and laughed among the maids. Pan Jinlian had seen it long ago. In the morning, Simon King was sitting with Ying Boju when he was informed that Song Yashi had sent someone to deliver a table of gold and silver wine vessels to congratulate Huang Taiwei, 2 gold po teas, 2 sets of gold table cups, 10 sets of small silver bells, 2 sets of silver folding bowls, 4 sets of silver bells, 2 pieces of bright red pythons, 2 pieces of gold satin, 10 jars of wine, and 2 sheep. The message was passed. "The Taiwei ship has arrived in Danchang. Please prepare a banquet here early and welcome him on the 18th. Simon King understood the receipt, gave the visitor 1 tael of silver, and sent him back with a handbook. Then he exchanged the silver with Ben Si and Lai Xing'er, set the table, and put fruits on it. The comprador sorted it out. There is no need to go into details. He said to the count, since he got sick. I have not had a day of peace. I just finished the funeral and now this has come up, making me very busy. The count said, this brother doesn't need to complain. You didn't try to recruit him, but he came to your house to ask for help. Although you can pay him a few taels of silver for this banquet, tomorrow, not only will an imperial envoy from the court come to our house to sit down, but also the officials of Shandong province, the governor, the inspector, and the generals will also. Many glories. Simon King said, that's not what I meant. I expected her to be over 20 years old, but I didn't expect to meet her on the 18th. It's too rushed. Today is also her 57th day. I have already paid the money to Taoist Wu for writing the ritual. Why change it? Otherwise, how can we get rid of the two-headed fire sticks when they are all crowded together? Ying Boju said, it's not a big deal. I calculated that my sister-in-law died on September 17th. The 21st of this month is the 57th day. You set up the banquet on the 18th, and it won't be too late to chant sutras with my sister-in-law on the 20th. Shimen King said, you are right. I will ask the servant to tell Taoist Wu to change the date. The Earl said, brother, I have another thing. Huang Zhenren from Tokyo was sent by the court to Tai'an Prefecture to offer golden bells and hang imperial incense, and to hold a 7-day and night Lu Ocean Grand Ceremony. He is now staying in the temple. Before he gets up, we can ask Taoist Wu to invite him to perform high-level rituals and lead the rituals on that day. We can also seek his reputation and make it look good. Shimen King said, everyone says that this Huang Zhenren is beneficial, so it would be better to invite him. But Taoist Wu is worried that he will not be able to accept his sacrifices on his fasting day. The funeral was called up by him again, and the Taoist boy sent him to the funeral. There was no way to reward him, so I taught him to recite the sutra, just to show my intention. Now we invite Huang Zhenren to perform the ceremony. Isn't it difficult for him? The Earl said, he should still take the fast. Just ask him to ask Huang Zhenren to perform the high-level ritual. Brother, only spend a few more taels of silver for my sister-in-law, not for others. Simon King asked Chen Jingji to write a letter, and gave him another 5 taels of silver, asking him to invite Huang Zhenren earlier, and to recite sutras on the 20th instead, and the 20 for Taoists would refine him with water and fire for a day and a night. Then, he asked Diane to ride on the front. Simon King sent the Earl away and went to the back. He saw Wu Yunyang saying, Bensi's wife bought 2 boxes, and her daughter and eldest sister are going to marry someone. Come in, Cao. Simon King asked. Whose family? Bensi's wife brought her daughter, wearing a bright red satin jacket, a yellow silk skirt, and flowers and jade, and lit candles and koto to Simon King for times. Yu Niang said, we didn't know that the child was given to Xia's family as a favor. They were only decided yesterday. He was married on the 24th. And he was only given 30 taels of silver. In fact, the child is in good shape. He doesn't look like 15 years old. He looks like 16 or 17 years old. He has grown up in a short time. Simon King said, he told me at the banquet the other day that he wanted to give to children to learn to play and sing. I didn't know your child was given to him. Then he asked Yu Niang to go into the room, set tea and let her sit. After that, Li Zhaoer, Meng Yulu, Pan Jinlian, Sun Zui, and the eldest sister all came to greet him and sit with him. Before leaving, Yu Niang gave him a set of heavy silk clothes and 1 tael of silver. Li Zhaoer and the others were given flowers, jade, handkerchiefs, cosmetics, and the like. In the evening, Diane replied, I know that Taoist Wu has received the money. Master Huang is still living in the temple and will return to Tokyo after the 20th. Come early on the 19th to lay the altar. The next day, Simon King's kitchen servants were assigned to prepare a banquet. They had to be neat and tidy. There were 7 level colorful mountains on the gate and 5 level colorful mountains in front of the hall. On the 17th, Song Yeshi sent to county officials to watch the banquet. In front of the hall, there was a peacock screen, and the floor was covered with carpets. There were brocade table curtains and flowery chairs. Huang Taiwei was eating at a large plate of elbow rice and Dingshang sugar cubes. There were 2 small tables for viewing, where the governor and the inspector sat with him. On both sides, there were tables and seats for the 3 officials. The other 8 officials were on both sides of the tent outside the hall, with only 5 fruits and 5 dishes on the flat table. After watching, Simon King waited for tea and got up to reply. The next day, the governor led many officials and horses to the boat early in the morning. He hoisted a yellow flag with the words Imperial Envoy and walked in front with the Imperial Edict. The local commanders, defenders, supervisors, militiamen, and military officers in charge of the guards were all dressed in military uniforms and armor, and led their troops and horses to follow him. The ceremonial staffs were several miles away. Huang Taiwei wore a bright red and colorful double-embroidered python, sat in a warm sedan chair with 8 bears and 8 clusters of silver tops, and held a brown umbrella. Behind him, countless stewards and servants followed him, all riding on horses and roaring, like a brocade of thousands of flowers, following the drums and music. On the yellow earth road, no chickens or dogs were heard, and the woodcutters and pickers disappeared. The horses passed Dongbing Prefecture and entered Qing County. The county magistrate knelt on the road to greet them, and the left and right shouted and shouted. The message was passed along the way until it reached Simon King's door. The drums and music of the Jiaofeng shook the sky, and the stewards on both sides were all dressed in green and lined up in a row. Simon King was dressed in green and crowned, and he looked at him in the dust. After a long time, all the people and horses passed by, and the Taiwei got out of the sedan chair and came in. Behind him, the Fuan led the officials of all ranks and rushed in. When they arrived in the hall, the Zheng, Qin, Fang sang, Yun Yu, dragon flute, and phoenix pipe sounded. The first was the Shandong Governor-in-Chief Censor Hu Meng, and the Inspector and Supervisory Censor Song Qianian, who came to see the emperor. The Taiwei responded to them according to the etiquette. Next came the Shandong Left Governor Gong Gong, the Left Councillor He Kegao, the Right Governor Chen Saijin, the Right Councillor Ji Canting, the Councillor Feng Tinghu, the Right Councillor Wang Boyan, the Integrity Envoy Zhao Ni, the Interview Envoy Han Wenguang, the Deputy Envoy of Education Chen Zhenghui, and the Deputy Envoy of Military Preparation Lei Qiyuan, and other officials from the 2 departments, who came to see the emperor. When the officials of the 8 prefectures, Zhu Song of Dongchang Prefecture, Hu Shuwen of Dongbing Prefecture, Ling Yuni of Yanzhou Prefecture, Han Banqi of Shuzhou Prefecture, Zhang Shui of Jinan Prefecture, Wang Shiki of Qingzhou Prefecture, Huang Jia of Dengzhou Prefecture, and Yijin of Leizhou Prefecture, came to the hall to attend the ceremony. The Taiwei only bowed. As for the officials of the command, control, defense, capital supervisor, and militia, the Taiwei sat upright. The other officials waited outside as they were issued. Then, Simon King and Jia Tixing came up to pay their respects and offer tea. The governor Hu and the inspector Song came forward to hold the cups. The drums and music played below, and they came to the Taiwei with golden flowers in their hair and jade cups, and they drank with each other. After the wine was handed over, the Taiwei sat down at the main seat and pressed the chair below. The other officials and Simon King sat down in order. The actors in the Jiaofeng handed over the music, and all the music was played and danced in groups. Each had its own rhythm and was extremely magnificent. At the banquet, the story of Pei Jinggong returning the belt was performed. After one act, the kitchen servants cut and presented roasted deer, spotted pig, 100 treasures soup, and big rice dumplings. There were also 4 actors who played zither, pipa, and konghu. They came up to play and sing. After the singing, the soup was not served twice, but the music was played 3 times. The stewards followed below, and Song Yashi sent to state officials to have a table in Simon King's pavilion to entertain them. Simon King ranged the guards, the chief supervisors and other officials in the front guest seats, and they had their own seats. Huang Taiwei ordered his attendants to bring 10 taels of silver to reward the servants. And then he saw the sedan chair and got up. The officials tried to stop him again and again, but they couldn't stop him, so they sent him out the gate. Drums and music played repeatedly, and the 2 streets were noisy with guards, and the carriages were preached, and people and horses were lined up. Many officials got on their horses to see him off, but the Taiwei ordered them to be excused, and he raised his hand and got on the sedan chair and laughed. Censor Song and the Governor-General ordered the military guards below the governor to escort him to the imperial ship to report back. The tableware, the sheep wine in return, and the handwritten documents were sent to the governor of Dongbing Prefecture, Hu Shiwen, and the guard chose you to personally deliver them to the ship and hand them over. When he returned to the hall, he thanked Simon King and said, "I am deeply grateful for the trouble today. I am grateful for the shortage of funds. I will make up for it." Simon King hurriedly bowed and said, "I am deeply grateful for your love and honor. I have been honored by the grand ceremony. Yesterday, I was also given a gift. I live in a humble house, and I am afraid that I am not able to meet the requirements. I am grateful that you will forgive me, Grandfather Wanli." After thanking him, Censor Song ordered his left and right to watch the sedan chair, and he stood up with the Governor-General. The officials of the 2 departments and 8 prefectures all bowed and laughed. All the servants dispersed. When Simon King returned to the hall, he rewarded the actors and musicians with wine and food, and ordered them to disperse, leaving only for official actors to serve. The official desks inside and outside the hall were taken care of by their own subordinates. Seeing that it was still early, Simon King packed up his things, set up for tables, and asked people to invite Wu Daju, Ying Boju, Si Zida, Wen Xiu Kai, Fu Zixin, Gan Chushan, Han Daoguo, Ben Si, Zhui Ben, and his son-in-law Chen Jingji, who had been up since the 5th watch and worked hard to take care of the affairs, to sit down and drink 3 cups. Soon, everyone arrived and served wine. The Earl asked, "Brother, how long has General Huang sat here today? Are you happy?" Han Daoguo said, "Today, the 6th eunuch Huang was very happy to see that our banquet was complete. The governor and the inspector were very grateful and thanked us again and again." The Earl said, "If it were any other family, it would not be able to hold this banquet. They don't have such a large place as ours, nor do they have so many people in the mansion. At least 1,000 people came in today, and they all have to be entertained. Brother, I will give a few taels of silver, and our Shandong province will be famous." Wen Xiukai said, "The head of our school, Mr. Chen, is also here." Simon King asked his name, and Wen Xiukai said, "My name is Chen Zhenghui, and he is Mr. Chen Liaoing, the censor. He is from Chongzhen County, Henan Province. He passed the imperial examination at the age of 18 and became a jinshi in Renzhen. He is now the deputy envoy of the local education department and is very knowledgeable." Simon King said, "He is only 24 years old this year." As he was talking, the soup and rice came up. After everyone finished eating, Simon King called for young girls and asked, "What are your names?" They answered, "My names are Zhou Kai, Liang Duo, Ma Zhen, and Han Bai." The Earl asked, "Aren't you from Han Jin Chuan'er's family?" Han Bai knelt down and said, "Jin Chuan'er and Yu Chuan'er are my sisters." Simon King thought of Li Ping'er and said, "I won't see her today because of the wine." He ordered the young girls, "Bring your musical instruments here and sing Luo Yang Flowers, Liang Yu and Moon for me." Han Bai and Zhou Kai plucked the zither and plucked the ruan, singing, "Fusional Luo Yang Flowers, Liang Yu and Moon. Good flowers must be bought, bright moon must be borrowed. Flowers lean on the railing to watch them bloom." The moon once asked about the round night with wine. "The moon waxes and wanes, flowers bloom and wither. I think the most painful parting in life is parting. Flowers wither. Spring is approaching. The moon is waning. Mid-autumn festival is here. People leave. When will they come back?" After the song was over, Ying Boju saw Simon King's eyes were full of sadness. So he asked, "Brother, you taught me to sing this song. Are you thinking of your deceased sister-in-law?" Simon King saw the fruit plate at the back and shouted, "Second brother Ying, you only blame me for saying that he was the one who took care of everything when he was here. Since he is gone, what do you think of it? Just letting the maids tease you. I can't even eat a single delicious dish." When Chiukai said, "Such a grand arrangement. The old gentleman has no one to feed him. It's enough." Boju said, "Brother, don't say that. You are so sad. But even if you say that, I'm afraid it will make other sisters-in-law feel cold for a while." They were talking at the banquet, but Pan Jinlian was listening to the singing behind the soft wall. When she heard Simon King say this, she walked to the back and told Yu Niang everything. Yu Niang said, "Let him do what he wants. What do you think of you now?" When he was here the other day, he promised to let Shuchun serve Li Jiaoer. He opened his eyes and yelled to me, saying, "When you die, disperse the maids in his room." I didn't say a word. Has he been acting a little crazy these past 2 days, relying on his wife and to maids? If I open my mouth, I will say that we are squeezing him. Jinlian said, "This wife has changed her behavior these past 2 days. I'm afraid she is a shameless thief. She stays in that room all day and doesn't even bother with this wife. I heard that she gave him 2 pairs of hairpins the other day. His wife wore them on her head and showed them to this and that." Yu Niang said, "Bean sprouts, what a bundle." Everyone was unhappy behind her back. It is just like this. The traces of the remains are worthy of the eyes of the people of the time. Buy more rouge to paint peonies.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.